In this module, you'll understand how the brain codes sensory information, language, and memory, and how to alter internal motives and feelings to change beliefs, break objections, to ultimately close deals faster. Okay, um, I want to go over in our neuroscience courses. We always learned of the sensory modalities, uh, VACOG, which is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. Right? Every internal experience is stored as a combination of these sensories. So when you're trying to dig deep into pain, about why, about emotions, convey these things, touch on these points. Psychological and neurological backing also shows that it's so important not only to tie visual to visual cues, verbal to verbal cues, but both. They code together. The hippocampus and cortex store multi-modal info, not just words or images separately, right? When you think of an event, you think of how it sounded, how it felt, how it smelled, all at once. It's not like putting your brain has to piece it together. It's together, right? Emotional memory, especially, involves amygdala plus sensory cortices. So it changes how it looks, sounds, feels, and it impacts the whole memory as a whole. So, how I would break this down is because if a look is sensed, if something you remember about the concert, the sound, or um, especially with flowers, the smell. Yes, you're looking at the flower. Yes, the flower probably has a taste. Yes, you can. You can't really hear the flower, but you can hear what's going around in the garden. The smell is what hits you, and the smell is immediately what triggers this emotion. So the way your prospects imagine the prospect determines how they feel about it. And the way your prospect thinks about their problems and their issues in the business is how it truly is to them, what goes on in their brain. So if they visualize the struggle or visualize the goal, help them visualize it even better, so they don't hesitate, but they could even see themselves crushing it. They see themselves successful working with y'all. So your job becomes like to shift that internal representation of what can be, not just like, hey, here's more logic, here's what we have, we have coaching, we have this, we have this website. It's like that truly doesn't matter. Some sales prompt examples that I wrote down for you guys. When you picture your life 6 months from now using this program, like, what do you see? What would it feel like to finally be confident on every sales call? Like, can you hear the difference in your voice when you're no longer worried about your numbers? Like, it's a little bit soft, but it can be, said in a bit of a harsher tone. But think about some of these questions yourself. What you would like to ask. A core NLP concept I want to share is submodalities, okay? The hidden levers of emotion. Submodalities are the fine structure of a sensory experience. So an example, an image can be big or small, close or far, colored or black and white. These details determine their emotional intensity, right? So if your prospect is visualizing price as a scary, large, overwhelming number, you can shift their submodalities. This is all in the amygdala. Again, we know what the amygdala is now. So you would say things like, imagine that number shrinking down into something the size of a text notification. In your head. I'm not likely to say the number. Or to them, how can you convey or communicate that, what if this investment that they're making was actually just a stepping stone far in the background of the big vision? You could vocalize this to yourself right now, and of course the questions you're asking won't be exactly that, but it needs to give exactly that. Like, it needs to give that off. That's shifting submodalities right there. So you replace a problem image of like overwhelm, fear of rejection, with a desired identity image, right? For example, it's like a confident closer versus someone who's like everywhere. It's too useful for you during mindset prep, during sales calls, or objection reversals, or handling price anchor fears. So your internal dialogue matters. It's not just uh, commentary, but it programs behavior for yourself, but also for the prospect as well. What are not only are we trying to understand what they're thinking, but it's what has actually programmed them to think that. Become aware and interrupt these internal scripts, so things are able to change. Um, I want to share with you guys what default mode networks are. DMN. It's a brain network active during self-talk and narrative construction. Super cool. When you talk to yourself, you're talking to the DMN, the default mode network. And studies show that self-referential language affects stress, memory, and behavior. Right? When they're thinking, dude, this is fucking expensive. Dude, this is expensive. I can get off on call. Like, it sounds different. It changes a lot. So you not only need to pierce the conversation, but you need to pierce what's going on inside of their head, what's going on in their brain. Right? Prospects often talk themselves out of buying before, we even get to the end of conversation. So your job is to hear what's actually going on internally, not just listen to what they say, and then change it. Right? So listen for language clues. Like, I just don't know if I feel like I always, but this. Okay, but I also, look out for those things. Okay? An exercise you can do is to pick a product or result and describe it 5 ways: visually, auditory, kinesthetic, like how it feels, and then think about that for problems in business, problems with people's fitness, problems with people's relationships, and you could start trying to decode that for yourself, and eventually on sales calls for others.